Listening to the Hometown Losers, the St. Louis Sports Podcast, with Josh, Adam, and OJ.
Hey everybody, welcome back here to the Hometown Losers Podcast. This is session number 59, and I'm joined as always by my co-hosts and OJ and Adam. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
Doing great. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to Turkey Day, 3-day work week. So it's going good. How's it going for you guys?
Same, exactly.
Awesome.
Not the same for me. I was off Monday, so I only had a 2-day work week.
That's true.
So that was nice.
Well, I had off. When did I have off last Friday? Yeah, I had off Friday. So I had a 3-day weekend as well, but it was off Friday, Saturday, Sunday instead of with a Monday. But yeah, technically
I was also off that Friday. So
you were. Well, you were out of town, so yeah, good reason.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I was gonna say good reason for that. So at least you brought us back a win for the Chiefs. So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah, thank goodness. That was a real tight game for no reason. But
no doubt.
Is what it is.
Yep, but there's been a few things been going on in St. Louis sports news for sure. So
yeah, so
let's talk about it. So I guess we're here to get caught up.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and jump into that. Because as you just pointed out, Adam, it's been a minute since we've had our last session here. But
yeah,
let's go ahead and talk about the Blues. I'll do a quick update before we jump into our major topics discussing that. So the update here, we are now 10-12-1 for 21 points. That is 5-7-1 since our last session. So that's 5 wins, 7 losses, and 1 overtime loss. We are now 6th in the Central Division compared to 5th in the Central Division from last session. We are 15 points behind the Jets, who are obviously dominating not just the Central Division, but the entire NHL. We are 12th in the West, which is 2 positions worse since last session. We are 23rd in the NHL on rankings. That is 5 positions worse. And again, the Jets lead the West and the NHL, excuse me. We are 3 points out of the last wild card spot, which is held by Colorado Avalanche here. That's 2 more points added on since the last session as well. It's not been a very good season so far for the Blues. A lot of optimism that I had at the beginning of the year is really starting to fall onto it. And as we just saw too, not terribly too recently, this is more breaking news comparatively for some of the stuff that's been going on. But we now have fired our coach and have hired Jim Montgomery, an old face for the Blues. So we'll go ahead and start there. Adam, what's your take here on us hiring Jim Montgomery now?
Yeah, honestly, I think hiring Montgomery was a great move. I mean, the guy has a solid track record. He led the Bruins to, a record-setting season just a couple years ago. So we know he can handle the pressure and get results. Plus, obviously, he's already familiar with the Blues, from his time as assistant coach here. So he knows the culture, some of the players. So, to me, it feels like the organization, really made us kind of a smart but quick decision, obviously, to grab him up as soon as he became available.
Yeah, so once Boston fired him, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they were on the horn immediately, said, hey, Jim, would you like to come back? It sounded like they didn't waste any time. So it really shows, I think, that they were serious about making changes before the season really gets away from them. For me, what I like most about Montgomery is that he's really known for bringing structure and discipline to his teams. And I think that's exactly what we really need right now. We've really struggled defensively and our consistency. And there's been many a night where we just don't play a full 60 minutes. And I think Montgomery can come in and help the team be tougher to play against, I think, at the end of the day. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, what's your take here on this, OJ?
Well, I think I like it because I think Montgomery's a good coach. Yeah, I think they hired him up so quick because he was available. I think that they would have hired him in the offseason if they could have. So I think it's a good deal. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, what was his record with Boston? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah, so I don't have his record of just Boston, but I do have his full record. He's 180 wins, 84 losses, 35 overtime losses. With Boston, he finished first in the Atlantic Division and then second in the Atlantic Division. But again, never got past the second round. When they won the Atlantic Division and came first, they lost in the first round to the Panthers, and then last year lost in the second round to the Panthers, who obviously would go on to win the Stanley Cup. So
And I do have
Yeah.
some stats here. So obviously in his first season with the Bruins in 22-23, that's where he led them to the historic 65-12-5 record, which was obviously the NHL record for most wins in a single season. So then in 23-24, they finished 47-20-15, placing second in the division. And then obviously, this season we've seen the challenges and where they look like they started 8-9-3, and they had lost 4 of the past 5 games at that point until they decided to fire him. But he had shown coming in there that, obviously, like I said, mentioned, a couple years ago, an amazing track record there. But obviously, it is here and there. I think that it was a great move from on my behalf for the fact that we need that structure, we need that discipline, and I think that he's the guy that can deliver it. He's probably the. I think it was a great opportunity for us. Like, I agree with you, OJ, that if they would have, more than likely, if it would have happened in the offseason, they would have scooped him up then. But it was a good opportunity since, he became available and they didn't want to mess around as far as, somebody else picking him up and scooping him up, because I think it's a good fit for us since he already
yeah,
knows
because
the team.
you definitely kind of knew at this point that Bannister wasn't going to be like
Yes,
the
correct.
guy.
And
So
this
what's
guy
the
already
point of waiting?
knows the chemistry with the Blues, and he can provide us that, you know, um, that structure that we're looking for, and that
Yeah,
especially from a defensive consistency perspective, because that's where we really need to tighten up.
yeah. I mean, the one knock that you can say against him is the fact that he's never got past the second round. But out of 3 playoff runs that he was the head coach of, 2
Mm-hmm.
of them he ran into the eventual Stanley Cup winners. And one of them
Mm-hmm.
was us. He
Yep,
was the coach of Dallas when we knocked them out in the second round, and we know
that's
how
a good
close
point.
we were to losing that as well.
That's a very good
So,
point.
some of it is, yes, he had good teams, but he obviously seems to, be a pretty good coach as well in that,
He is.
that aspect of things.
I'd say
Yep.
so. So yeah, I like the move. I mean, they've had a couple good results so far. So they won the first game, and then they jumped out to a 3-0 lead on New Jersey tonight. And since the first period, though, they've kind of been getting it taken to them. So I don't know. We'll see.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I just didn't think that Bannister was the guy. Like, I like the move just because I feel like this is, Bannister. I mean, take it for what you will. Like, Bannister, didn't prove anything to anybody, but neither
Didn't move
did
the needle.
Berube yeah, exactly, until Berube won the cup.
Yep.
So this is just an interesting time for the Blues.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that that's where Jim Montgomery is going to have the issue, right? Is if we can make the playoffs, with the Blues, it's going to be a little bit different. But if he's able to restructure and we end up doing well during the regular season, his regular season statistics are phenomenal when you take a look at like the wins and stuff. He's got 180 wins, 84 losses, 34 overtime losses, what I just mentioned, right? But he's
Right.
16 and 17 in the playoffs. So he's like getting to game 7 and losing consistently. So that's just going to be like, how can you bury teams or win those game 7s? And that's the difference between being a cup winner and not, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I mean, they've definitely had said that about other coaches too, though.
yeah, for
Like
sure.
great coaches have gone on to win multiple Stanley Cups. So, until he wins his first one, people are always going to say that, but it doesn't mean he can't.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Because there has been, as you pointed out, OJ, a lot of coaches in the NHL history that have, you say that it's not even just NHL, but it's just a lot. It's like look at John Elway, for example, like looking back on NFL, and this is not a coach, but more of a player. Everyone's just like, yeah, he's a great guy, a great player, but he's just never going to be able to get to like the immortal status of like being
Right.
on the Mount Rushmore because he can't
Oh, he's
win a
not a
Super
good
Bowl.
playoff player,
Yeah,
coach. You know
exactly
what I
right.
mean? Yeah.
Yeah,
Until they
and it's
do
just
it. So
exactly. Yeah. And it just like OJ, I know you're not watching NFL currently, but it's the same thing, Adam, with Lamar Jackson. Lamar
Oh yeah.
Jackson, is the forerunner right now to win his
Yep.
second MVP in a row and to win his third
Yep.
MVP, but he has not had playoff success.
He hasn't. You're
So,
absolutely right. He
it
always
really,
runs into us or along the way. Yeah.
yeah. So, it's just going to be interesting to see kind of like how it goes. But OJ, I'm going to start with you on this next question here. With Montgomery being hired here, now what do you want to see from the Blues for the rest of the season? Like, what's the one thing that you want to see from them, that is going to help you kind of like stick with them, so to speak?
well, it would definitely help improve my opinion of the team if actually their offense can improve, because that's the part that's just been abysmal. Uh, and I think he's capable of coaching a good offensive team as well, because I mean the teams he's coached in the past have been pretty good offensively, at least in Boston. Maybe not as much Dallas. They were maybe more defensively minded, I guess, back in those days, if I'm remembering correctly. But
Yeah, they still had some
yeah,
good goal scorers, and like the Dallas teams were really balanced. That's the thing that I do like about Montgomery is even the Boston teams, that he coached, they were very well balanced. You know what I mean?
yeah. They
So,
definitely, yeah, they were pretty good defensively too, but they had
mhm,
high offensive
yeah,
firepower
and
in
I think some of that comes with the
2019.
fact that you have better scorers too on that team compared to Dallas overall. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, and the Blues had a pretty good offense too while he was an assistant there. So,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I think he's capable of coaching up a good offense. And I honestly think that the way he talks about the way he talked about the team after the game against the Rangers makes me think that he thinks they need to get like pumped up a little bit, I guess, because he was like super positive. Like I've never heard a hockey coach speak that positively after a win. It's always like, yeah, we got some issues we need to clean up, yada yada. Coaches love to do that shit, but like he must have come in and diagnosed it as like these guys are kind of down and we need to boost their egos a little bit so they play with a little more confidence out there, because he's just like
Okay.
pumping their tires the entire interview after that game. So we'll see if it works.
Well, and maybe that's what's needed. Like when you feel that your team is just not doing great with morale. You know, what I mean, you have to
Yeah,
do the Ted Lasso thing, and like speak positively and hope that it raises them up, so to speak.
yeah, exactly. And then they came out this game on fire, but certainly New Jersey's locked it down now. So, and I don't know if the Blues are maybe just laying back since they're up 3 goals or what's going on, but I don't think they've had like a shot since they had one shot in like the second period on goal, and they haven't had any
Wow.
in the third yet, and it's like halfway over.
Is it still 3-0 or?
Yeah, it's still 3-0. It's 23 shots to 11 New Jersey. So I think New Jersey woke up for sure and is chasing the game, but oh, there's a shot on goal. I also can't trust this shot counter because the Blues scored on their first shot of the game, and it was reading like 0 shots each for like a long time after that. So I don't know how accurately they're tracking that.
I've been noticing that too, especially in the NHL. Like the shot counter, like I don't know who they got running these things, but it's just been really
Mhm.
bad lately. It's like,
It's been really
Yeah,
bad. I've noticed that.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's almost like they want to like pump up shot totals since fans all look at expected goals
Yeah.
now. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
let's
Somebody
pump up some of these teams by
somebody
manipulating
literally
shot
made a
counts.
meme of that and like was they were like they literally screenshot it and circled it and was like WTF is
Yeah.
going on here. It's like, yeah, a lot of people have been talking about that online. They were
So
like
even if New
calling
Jersey
that out.
loses, yeah, even if New Jersey loses this game by 3 goals, if we make it look like they really shut the
Yep.
Blues down after that, then fans are gonna be like, oh well, we really were the better team. It was just
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, unlucky bounce here, unlucky bounce there.
Sure.
Yeah, the refs screwed us, man. That's what it was.
Oh God.
Although they've definitely had a pretty hardcore slashing on one of our guys that I saw that didn't go called. So they've had some breaks themselves.
All right. Well, I think that the Blues, like for me, the one thing I want to see is progress, right? So I felt like we kind of all said that at the beginning of the year was that we wanted progress from this team. We want to see a step forward, even if it's a slight step forward. We want to see that. I feel like we've taken a step back at this point in time. That's kind of like for me, like what I want to see from them. Whether it's like just scoring better offensively. I mean, obviously you want to get more points. But even
Right.
if you're not winning games, but like statistically, you're looking better on the power play, on the penalty, because our power play has been absolute shit.
Yeah,
Like
I
something
agree.
has got to change on the power play. So if you can show some progression there, and maybe even some like you're even if you're losing games 1-0, that's fine. But you've been getting your
Yeah.
tires blown off. You know what I mean? At a few of these games where like, okay, cool, you win 3-2. Ooh, that's awesome. But then you lose a game 6-1 or 8-1, whatever the fuck that one game was.
Yeah.
It's just
There's
like
two
it's
8 to
hard to
1s.
watch.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
exactly. And it
agree.
was in a short period of time. So it's like, did you guys just give up? Like, where is your work ethic? And
Hey,
you want
that's
to
what
be
the
able to see that.
players said. Like Fox
Yeah.
came out and said it. Like, oh, some of these guys are just giving up once we get down. like, oh, okay. Or like he basically just said that. I
Yeah.
don't know if he used
Like
those
they're already
exact
thinking about the golf
words.
course. But yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, let's just get this night over with now. And then
Right.
you get
Right.
blown out. But yeah, I agree. They looked like they weren't progressing, which is why another reason I'm happy for this coaching change.
I
For
think
sure.
it came at the right time. Adam, what do you want
Yeah.
to see, with this team for the rest of the season? Like what would you like to see?
Yeah, honestly, there's a lot I'd like to see change. So starting with the defense, it's been a real weak spot for this team, this season, and it's hurt them definitely in some key games. They've had a few high goal losses, and that obviously shows that we're not where we need to be defensively. So I mentioned it earlier, Montgomery, he has a reputation for building stronger offense systems. So I'm hoping he really tightens things up on our, in our zone, for example. So if he can cut down on those defensive laps, that'll make a huge difference. But back to what OJ was saying is that we definitely need to see more consistency on our offense. And I think that we have the talent there, like we have Kyrie, we have Thomas, and they can definitely put up points, but they can't carry the load every night. This team really needs
Fair.
to
Very fair.
spread out the scoring and just have more guys stepping up. Overall, we've ranked pretty low in the league offensively, so there's a lot of room for improvement. And on top of that, I think player development has got to be our priority for us.
Yeah.
Bolduc, for example, has a ton of potential, and it's really going to be on Montgomery to help him and the other younger guys, in that next step. So if we can get contributions from that younger, portion of our team with the veterans holding it down, I think it'll help us create a really balanced team like you guys were talking about. And I agree with you, Josh, as well. We got to really focus on special teams, both power play and the penalty kill, the PK is really got to use it. It could really use some work. So Montgomery's he's going to have to tackle all of those areas in order to get the Blues trending in the right direction. But I'll remain hopeful. We'll see.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing about it. Go on.
I was going
OJ.
to say, to your point, Adam, they actually rank pretty low in league ranking in like every aspect.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
They do.
really, they were like
You're right. You're right.
regressing under
That's the reason why I
Bannister.
kind of basically addressed each of those areas because ultimately it is on all of those areas that we need improvement.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
defensively, offensively, especially in every avenue. And that's, let's face it, that's one of the reasons why we have, we've decided to, go with new head coach at this point as well because we got to start somewhere, and that's the guy that's going to take lead and try to see what he can do as far as charting a new path forward because he's got his work cut out for him, no doubt.
Absolutely.
But I think that that's going to be the recipe for success.
Yeah, again, we'll see what ends up happening, but it's obviously way too early to tell what Jim Montgomery's impact's going to be. Obviously, 1-0 so far, and obviously on their way to potentially 2-0 here, as long as they don't blow it. But
Right.
that only tells you so much, right? And so when is that going to continue, or is that going to be able to continue or not? Like we've seen the Blues, especially in the past few years, have like little bumps here and there, and then all of a sudden just go right back into their old ways. We
Yeah.
really need some leadership on this team, I feel, and I just don't think we really have it. Beyond maybe Shen, like there's not much like leadership I am seeing. And that's going to be coming from, again, people like Kyrou, like Thomas. These guys have got to step up, and there's got to be a better locker room presence and holding people accountable, because like I mean, listen, you never want to go out there and like, all right, we lost 8-1. All right, like we just had a really bad game, right? But when you give up another 8-1, you lose by 7 again, again within the span of a week. That's when you got to start taking that shit personally. You know what I mean? You can't just be like sitting there going like, oh well, we just we'll get them next time. We had a bad game. Bullshit. Like I want to know why. Like why did that happen? Like in 2 games we lost by 14. In those 2 games, right? Come on
Yep.
now. Like that goal differential cannot happen like that. That is absolutely unacceptable at this level, at this professional level. 1 game, you can, maybe they were on fire. We just didn't get the bounces or whatever. But 2 games, and not to mention, then it's not even just the 8-1. I mean, we also was like 6-1. There was like 5-2, stuff like that. You're getting your tires blown off, right? You're winning
Sure.
some close games and stuff like that. But then but you're still just we haven't had a shutout this year. Potentially, hopefully I didn't jinx anything there, but we have not had a shutout this year. That's not great. It just shows you we're shit at defense. So I don't know.
Yes,
Like
we are.
again, there's a lot to clean up. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it'll definitely help to get Broberg back. And if Letty can come back actually fully healthy, I think he could also slot in higher up in the defensive lineup and put some guys back down where they belong. Because right now, guys are taking on more responsibility than they're capable of handling, in my opinion, especially on the defense. So that's what happens when you lose your probably best defenseman on the season so far in Broberg. Everybody's got to step up a level,
Yeah, no, and that's totally right. And that's fair. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, it shouldn't be like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, they're lacking in depth on defense. We knew that going into the year. It's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, that's a flaw of the team. But hopefully he can come back and stay healthy.
Yeah. I think that's something that he's going to help us with for sure.
Yeah. So, I got a question for you real quick, because I actually don't know the rule on this because it doesn't really happen. But New Jersey's goalie just came out almost to the blue line to poke check a puck away that Neighbors was going for. And I mean, he was standing basically straight up and just got his stick out there. Would it have been legal for Neighbors to just blow him the fuck up?
Yes, 100% yes.
I wish he did. He went around him.
Yeah.
It was close enough a play where I don't think it would have even been a penalty if he just destroyed it.
Yeah, like it's probably so there is kind of an unwritten rule to that, especially the fact that it's a 3-goal game. So
yeah, that is a good point.
Yeah, like now this is like if you're trailing, yeah, you like you do whatever you can to not necessarily, like, you're not trying to injure the goalie, right? But you're trying to affect the goalie. Like that's why
this is what happens when you come out and play the puck, buddy.
Well,
it's like when a quarterback scrambles with the ball.
I was just about to say, yep. Yeah, it's just like, how did the Giants beat Tom Brady twice in the Super Bowl? It's not that they had a better team. It's not that they had, better luck. It's because they knew how to affect Tom Brady in the pocket, because they knew that Tom couldn't run outside the pocket. So they get pressure on him and simulated pressure. And then that affects him. So you're affecting him by getting hits on him, even if he's able to get, successful passes or even throwing a touchdown pass. If you are able to hit him while he does that, it puts it in the back of his mind that he's going to have to throw the ball quicker and earlier, and that's going to affect them, right? So it's the same thing in goalies. Goalies are very temperamental people. Been around a lot of them, obviously. And it's like, again, they have a lot of different ticks and stuff like that. There was one guy that I played with that had a real big issue when he got snowed. So he would get really pissed off. And then when he got pissed off, he played like shit because he just wasn't focused anymore. But it's just like, dude, that's going to happen. You have to be able to let go of that, right? So, but no, to your point, it's definitely not a penalty. He becomes the eligible sixth skater at that point in time, and so yeah, you're able to blow him up. As long as so there, technically the rule is that if they're in their crease, you can't touch them, obviously. So they have to be fully, completely out of their crease, or yeah, like and obviously in the not the hexagon, but the
trapezoid.
The trapezoid. Thank you.
Yeah.
The trapezoid behind the net, right? Which is for their protection because they were getting hit a lot and slewed foot and stuff like that. And it's more of like that was also back in the day before they had the trapezoid. It was an unspoken rule in hockey as well. Like, dude, don't just go up there and hit him. He's clearly just trying to like play the puck and stuff like that. So you saw a lot of people do that, but then a lot of younger, frustrated players and stuff like that would do whatever they possibly can to like stick their skate out there or their stick out there and just try to trip them up or whatever, and so on and so forth.
Gotcha.
Better for it, but so that is the definition of the rule. They have to be completely outside of that. Like if they have just like the back of their skate inside their crease, they are not eligible to be hit. But if they go again, to go play it or whatever, they're eligible. But again, it's an unspoken rule that like you don't do it if they are like inside like the dots, so to speak, in if you will like put like a little bubble around that area, like a lot of goalies come out to challenge you, and then they make a glove save and stuff like that. And technically, like you're supposed to be in your crease, like if you're gonna freeze the puck. But most of the time, like again, that's legal. That's what they look for and stuff. So if it is a place where they can freeze the puck, you don't put anything on them because again, you're just trying to be courteous. But if they are like at the dots or to your point, like up towards the blue line, stuff like that, yeah, their ass is gonna get blown up. Like they should at least.
Yeah, no, that didn't. Neighbors took it easy on him, but yeah, and he wasn't like all the way down either. Like it wouldn't have been a Milan Lucic situation where you're just like concussing a guy. Like he could have thrown a hard legal hit straight through the dude's chest if he wanted to. But yeah, I guess they figured out we're up 3. Why do that?
And there's another aspect of that as well too, OJ. So like when you feel like you have a team that's pinned, like you're up 3-0, you dominated the first period, but they're starting to like slowly come back and get some momentum in the game. You don't want to disrupt the flow of the game because like you go in there and blow the goalie up or whatever, and all of a sudden he gets pumped up, but now it creates like this entire like bench clearing fight or whatever. Then they get all this momentum back from it because they get energy from it. That could literally turn the tides in hockey, as you know. So it's another thing about it. You know what I mean?
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, cool. That was just an interesting situation.
Yeah, for sure. All right, guys, let's go ahead and transition here to our second topic, which is going to be talking a little bit about STLSC. And OJ, I'm actually going to start with you here on this one. We obviously fired Bradley Carnell and have hired Olaf Melberg, a guy that hasn't had like a lot of success in his career coaching. Just for everybody's awareness, he is 65 wins, 32 ties, 50 losses in his career. He was a Swedish national player. So I'm going to ask you, OJ, 2 questions here, and then I'll ask you the same here, Adam. But what was your thoughts on Melberg's hiring, and do you think it was fair to Bradley Carnell, to be fired?
Well, so first of all, they fired Carnell, and then they had Hackworth in there as the interim manager.
Correct. Yeah.
He was also potentially up for the job, but they didn't hire him. He's staying on as technical director and assistant coach, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, so I think the knock on Carnell, and Lutz Pfannenstiel said it, like he was looking for somebody that was comfortable with having a plan B and actually going to it. So I think what he was seeing is that these guys, if their original tactical strategy didn't work, then they kind of just kept doing the same thing and letting it not work. So they wanted to go with somebody that could switch it up a little more. And anyway, this guy they hired, I actually did some looking into him because I didn't know anything about him. And so he was actually Aston Villa, like kind of a legendary player of Aston Villa for a while. And like you said, captain of the Swedish national team. So he had a pretty lauded playing career, which is a plus, but doesn't mean you'll be a good coach. So the team he took over for that you're talking about, like in the what is it, Swiss league, I guess. They were actually they were actually in the third division, and he got them promoted twice, 2 years in a row. So that's actually that's actually pretty impressive. And then yeah, he didn't do so good in the top league with them, but they also are like pretty much known as a developmental club. Like they have a lot of minor clubs that they get grow players through and all that, but their actual main club they don't invest in like at all. So he had like the average salary of a player on his team was making as much as like Miguel Perez, which is like, for anyone that may not know, that's that 18-year-old kid we got like that was still in high school while he was playing with us at first, his last season, or I guess 2 seasons ago now. So like they're paying their guys nothing, and they're trying to compete in the top Swiss league. So yeah, he had a bad record there. But he did develop a good reputation for developing players, developing youth. So that's, I think, is good. Like he might actually be a really good hire, but he definitely has some things to prove.
Right. Okay, that's fair enough. Adam, what's your take here? I mean,
Yeah.
so to your point, OJ, I do have to say that, obviously Cardell, it didn't go from Cardell to Melberg, but I was just more curious, like, if you think that it was fair for Bradley Carnell to get fired like so quickly into the second year after having success in the first year, right? But that was more what I was getting at for that. So Adam, same questions for you here. What's your thoughts on the hiring of Melberg, and did you think that it was fair that Bradley Carnell got fired?
Well, so my thoughts on Melberg's hiring. I think it's an intriguing choice. So as a player, I think his credentials are rather impressive. OJ, you mentioned how he captained Aston Villa and the Swedish national team. So he knows what it takes to lead and perform under pressure. But as a coach, obviously his record is more of a mixed bag. He's had some success with some smaller clubs like with BP, for example, where he did help them punch above their weight, but he still hasn't proven himself with a larger organization or at a consistently high level, really. Um, I think his strength really lies in really building disciplined, defensively sound teams, which is something that I think St. Louis City SC really needs after last season.
Yeah.
Let's face it,
And they have some guys coming up from the academy that need to take that next step. And he might be
You're
the guy
absolutely
that,
right about that. You're absolutely right about that. And I'm really glad that you mentioned that because I think that is going to be a major focus on that youth development and with the academy because we're going to have to tighten up defensively and we're going to have to start creating a tactile foundation really. And I think that he could help us in that direction. But it's going to be interesting seeing how he adapts to the MLS, though. It's really different from Europe with the salary caps and the roster rules and all that. So it's going to be interesting to see how he makes it work.
Sure.
But yeah, it sucks, obviously, going from last season, how we were abysmal. And I think that's obviously one of the reasons why Cardinal got let go, of course. I mean, it was pretty obvious. But it's really tough to see him get let go, though, especially after everything that he did for us in that inaugural season. It was really outstanding the fact that they were coming out so strongly. I mean, it blew all the skeptics away. And I respect what he accomplished and, give him kudos to that. But obviously, that second season really showed the team wasn't really progressing the way it needed to. And we all agree, a lot of consistency and structure issues. Then it just felt like, we were hitting a ceiling under his leadership. And I guess sometimes making a change is necessary to keep moving forward. But
Yeah, I think the
you know,
biggest thing is honestly, the reason why I think it's a little unfair is that there were so many fucking injuries he had to deal with as
you're right.
well.
You're absolutely right. 100%.
So
And I think that he really should hold his head held high for what he
yeah,
achieved. I really
yeah,
do.
he'll
I
get
have
another coaching job somewhere. He has to,
100%. Yep. Yep. It's a bold move and it comes with some risk, but you know, obviously it shows that we're not content with, just being competitive. They want to help build a team that's truly contends. And um
You mean they want to win the World Series and not Central Division? Oh wait, I'm sorry. That's a wrong team. Sorry.
well, it's kind of ironic. So I want to draw some interesting comparison here because it's kind of funny. We're talking about the Blues and City SC tonight, and ironically, in the same boat, so to speak. It's kind of ironic. They're both like our head coaches go. We're bringing in new head coaches, for example, and where our struggles are, it seems like we're both struggling in a lot of the very similar areas. But the fact is, I think that to your point, Josh, the fact that they're willing to admit that and they're willing to do something about it because they want to be competitive, I will say it makes me as a fan feel
It
like
speaks volumes. Yeah.
it does. It speaks volumes because my God, being a Cardinals fan right now, you feel like you're just being ignored and you just don't
Yeah.
give a shit. I mean, they just don't give a shit about it. So yeah, not to make this a Cardinals discussion, but I will say at least it shows that they want to be competitive. They want to build a team uh, that can go all the way. And I don't know. It might be the right call at the end of the day, but we'll see. I don't know. It's too early to tell. Obviously, like I said, it's the MLS. It's not the same. So I don't know if he can carry
Mhm.
that over or not. But hopefully, he can at least carry over some of his experience, as especially as a former captain, and he can help manage this team and get start delivering. But only time will tell.
Yeah. So I think that kind of like goes straight into like our next section, just like what we talked about with the Blues. Where do we want to see the team improve this year? And like what improvements do you
Well,
think the team needs to have? So Adam, go ahead and
yeah, well, so that's interesting because I think that we really need to focus on our defense and strengthening our midfield for sure, and we definitely need to get some of those younger guys involved. So OJ, like you were saying about bringing more academy players into the first team, I think that's going to be important for us for sure. The MLS in general has really been putting a lot of emphasis on youth development, and I think this is a great opportunity to tap into that talent. Not only is that going to help us grow, but it connects us with the local community as well. So I think it would be great if we made some stride in those areas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I also agree. Like they need to improve on their center back play, or really their back line needs to improve.
Yeah.
However, it does look like Olaf Melberg prefers a different formation or a couple different formations from what we usually use. So it'll be
Mhm.
interesting to see what that looks like. If maybe a formation change could help solve things, or if they need to find new personnel. I'm not sure. So, but yeah,
yeah,
that
that's
would be
the
the main
scary
thing.
thing about it in soccer is like you in soccer specifically compared to any of the sports we're used to, players get very used to being in certain positions and certain formations, right?
Right.
So is it like we have to change or are people going to be able to adjust to that, right?
Right.
It's not like, and I want to put this out there, it's not like Ted Lasso, everybody, where, like total football, like, oh, hey, they're just able to go to that and they're
Yeah,
playing total
yeah,
football. It's
yeah.
not that way because not everybody can do that. Okay.
You need somebody that knows the sport to actually coach it, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, I love Ted Lasso. It was amazing, like good show for sure. Sudeikis was amazing in it, but there was a lot of things that were like that. And I'm just like, it's like this is good for an American audience, but there's a reason why it's not as big internationally is because there's so many like you're messing with the wrong sport, so to speak, and it's written by American writers. So,
Well, yeah, and they really like tried to play up Europe too. They're like, oh, look how perfect everything is over in England.
yeah,
Like,
and yeah,
okay,
certainly.
buddy. Like,
They got their own issues, right? So,
yeah,
but anyways, yeah. So, like again, that's the very good aspect or a very good thought process too. Is are they going to have to bring in different personnel, and stuff like that? And
yeah.
speaking of different personnel,
Mhm.
let's talk a little bit about that now because I want to talk about the state of the MLS. And so here's the thing, and I'm just going to kind of go on a little bit of a rant here, and then I'm going to open up to you guys as well to get your opinions on this. So this is something that has been very concerning to me lately. Is all the new aging stars from Europe, European soccer, coming over and playing in MLS? But and so I'm all for that, except for the fact that they all want to play for two specific teams, and they want to play with Messi in Miami, or they want to go out to LA and play for LAFC. This is where I'm going to have an issue with MLS. If they allow this, they're clearly chasing money and they are not worried about the integrity of the game because it's literally turning into baseball all over again. A prime example of this is going to be Neymar. Neymar wants to come out in he wants to play in MLS from what people have said, but he will only play in Miami with Lionel Messi. Here's the problem with this. So we talked about this on this podcast early on. It was actually a question, OJ, that you had asked Danny when we had our special guest on, speaking of, our soccer expert and stuff. What is the significance of the numbers that everyone wears? What is the significance of the number 10? Number 10 is, again, the guy that is going to be the playmaker, the goal scorer, and it holds a very, very coveted spot for any team internationally or club level, right? So the international number 10 is a very, very significant number because typically that means that is your best player. It's not always because sometimes it could be the number 9, Benzema was for France for a long time and stuff like that, right? But the number 10 holds a very special spot. If Neymar comes and plays for Miami, there will be 3 international number 10s that are very high-end countries. Brazil is number 10 is still Neymar. Argentina's number 10 is still Lionel Messi. And Suarez is still Uruguay's number 10. All 3 of those guys would be on the same fucking team. It's the same thing as like the Dodgers, who just won the damn World Series, just picking up Blake Snell. This is where it's going to be a problem. You're going to break the rules that are set in place to allow fair competition. We don't have relegation. So you're just going to have 2 teams that are fighting, one in the East, one in the West. And essentially, cool, like everybody else is just playing for fucking participation trophies because that's just the significance of this. Antonio Griezmann, right? Or Antoine Griezmann, excuse me. Antoine Griezmann he's a French player, phenomenal number 8 there. I've watched him a lot throughout his career internationally as well as for club level. He's talking about coming over. Same thing with Lewandowski, who plays out for Swiss, or is it Poland? Poland, it's Polish, the Polish team. He's played, for Man U. He's played all over the place. He's had a very phenomenal international career. But they both say that they are willing to come to MLS, but they're only willing to play for LAFC. When we allow players to dictate where they are going to go, that's where this is going to be extremely dangerous, I think. And I think there's going to be a lot more turnoff than there will be, like, it's going to help MLS. Because, A, we're now the place that aging stars come to die. No one wants to come here in their prime. And again, at that point in time, we're just going to be stacking certain teams, and that's it, right? You take a look. Go on, OJ.
I do and do not have a problem with it. Like, I agree it would be a problem if they all just go to the same teams. If MLS respects their supposed roster rules currently, they won't all be able to go to the same team. So they'll just stay out of the league if that's really their demand,
Right.
If MLS bends over backwards so that LAFC and Miami can sign extra guys and everyone else has
right
to
now
follow
is
the
what
cap
people
rules.
That's what they're
that
talking
would
about.
be a crime. Like that would be
Yeah,
atrocious. Absolutely. I would stop watching the league. And so then at that point you
yeah,
have to ask yourself, are we really going to sacrifice the rest of the country so that we can appeal to LA and Miami? Like, you know, so I'd be curious to see how that all works out. But yeah, if they keep their roster construction rules and actually force all the clubs to follow them, then it shouldn't be really a problem. Uh,
of
Also,
course. Yeah,
generally, I don't have an issue with bringing guys in from other leagues, be, even if they're a little older, as long as they're actually still good. Because
no,
right now,
yeah,
MLS, like places that rank MLS, they have them ranked like I think it was ninth in the world as far as where they are. Like they're just a lower league right now. I don't have
right.
a problem with improving the overall level of play by bringing in some of these older guys, as long as they're not like decrepit. I
No,
think that's
listen,
okay too.
110%, right? So like when David Beckham came over and played for Galaxy, he was still good. He still had some left. Obviously, Lionel Messi still has some left, right? But
Right.
Wayne Rooney, when he came and played for Chicago Fire and then DC and then somewhere else, like, bro, like he was
Yeah,
done.
nothing.
Like Wayne Rooney was, but in all fairness, and I know anybody from England that's listening might, well, they might agree with me nowadays. But Wayne Rooney was never the. Everyone wanted him to be the new Beckham. He was not that good. He was not as good as Beckham. He
Yeah,
was not as good as a lot of the players that they've
well,
had
I'll agree
over
with
their
that.
period of
Yeah,
time. Wayne Rooney was, a one-trick pony to me, and that was about it. He was a great finisher, but when he had time and space, if he did not have
right.
that, he couldn't really do a whole lot. He was not that special in that aspect of things. Much better than me, I know that, but comparatively to international soccer, right?
Right.
But that's what I'm talking about, right? So I don't want it to be what I mean by that is I just don't want it to be where they come to die. I mean, that's where they're going to end their careers, but it's going to be a lot of then, okay, now they're like opening up the rules, so to speak. And you're going to have like Neymar goes to join Miami. Then all these other guys that are going to not be as good as those, the Wayne Rooneys, so to speak, are going to come because
Mhm.
that way they can come and play championship soccer with these legends, and it's an easy win. You know what I mean?
Well, and that's
So
where you have to
that
worry about the teams should self-regulate that. Like if they're trying to win, they should only be signing guys if they think they're going to make their team better. What you're talking about
yeah,
sounds like these
but
guys aren't going to help the team as much as be names to try and get butts in the seats, which would be
yeah, which is what
absolutely
the
terrible. I
yeah,
agree.
yeah, I agree with that. But that's the problem is that's what MLS probably would prefer right now over, especially because you're right now trying to take advantage of the fact that Lionel Messi is in MLS, right? So you need people to be on board with this, and you need to sell tickets.
Hmm.
You need your league is expanding, and you need it to expand for the right purposes, right? So again, I don't
Right.
know, man. Like it's just it's difficult, but that's what I think what would happen is the MLS, brass aren't going to like they would sign whomever they want to. If they have some name recognition on it, I think that they are willing to make exceptions to their rules because they want their brand to grow. They don't want to be number ninth anymore. They know they're not going to be able to get to La Liga or Premier or even like the Liga MX and which is the Mexican league. They're not going to be able to compete with those leagues. They know that at this point in time. But what they can do is do the American thing and throw money at it and hope that eventually younger players are going to come this way. But it probably won't go that way. You know what I
Well, why do
mean?
you think the Mexican league is so good, supposedly? And again, they're not that good. They have like a few really great teams that spend way more money than anybody else in MLS. That
Right.
was one of the things I thought. I honestly thought they were going to rehire Hackworth because he had them hanging with Club America for like most of a game. They lost by like a goal. You know what I mean? And that's
Yeah.
pretty impressive when Club America is spending like 120 million or whatever. I don't know, some crazy amount, and we're spending like 60. I don't know exactly what our roster spend was, but like a fraction of what they're spending. So like one thing
Yeah.
MLS could do right away to increase their talent level would just be to get rid of or raise drastically the salary cap, uh,
Yep.
so that teams could just go out and get guys that are in their prime. Imagine that.
But the problem with that is you have ownership that it won't. Then you're going to have the same thing that's going to happen that just happened with the Athletics. you have ownership that they're under certain like expectations of like money and constraints and stuff like that. They can't afford that, and that's not what they signed up for, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's where this is like right now a kind of a weird spot with MLS. But again, that's
Yeah.
where some issues are
Well,
going to be had with that. You know what I mean?
that is one of the good
So,
aspects of it being the single entity, though, is those owners have to get on board or get out. Like if
yeah.
MLS decides that's what's for the best of the league, they can just do it, which it
Well,
may
Yeah,
be.
for sure.
So, like, there's definitely some owners that do want to spend and do want to bring the best talent to the MLS. And if they did that, they would grow the league drastically because that's one of the main things that Americans don't like about MLS is that it's not one of the top leagues in the world. And on top of that, they don't like
Sure.
the diving and crap like that. But I mean, if you fix that and brought the best players over, people would actually pay attention to it. I guarantee.
Well, for sure. But again, like
I,
that's the problem is like you're going to have it to where they're all at one team. Like,
well, I was going
Oh,
to say, I was
if you completely remove a salary cap, I wasn't saying get rid of it, but it's really restrictive right now. I think they
yeah.
could afford to raise it quite a bit to bring in some higher caliber players. Um, but yeah, they still would never be able to compete for like the top guys because there's no salary cap in Europe. So Paris
Right.
Saint Germain is going to get whoever they want. Manchester United is going to get whoever they want. MLS isn't going to compete with them, but they're not competing with them now anyway. But you could still compete for some of those like second, third tier players that are still good enough to where people would be interested in watching your league because you would have like most of a EPL team. You know what I mean? Just not the top
Mhm.
guys. But I don't know their financials either. They have to make sure they stay solvent first and foremost. So
So what about then? You're mentioning salary caps and this and that, but what about a luxury tax then instead?
Yeah.
I hate the idea of a luxury tax period because to me that just widens the gap between the rich teams and the poor teams. Like if you look how it is in baseball, like
Mhm.
there's teams that can't afford to go over it, and then there's some teams that are like, yeah, fuck it, we can for a few years, and we'll just reset it every
Then it's
3
the
years.
same thing with the salary cap, though. That's the problem with it is like
No, a
there's going
hard
to be.
salary cap means everybody has to spend the same amount. A luxury tax is optional, truly.
I understand that, but that's not how it's going to work out in the real life. What I mean by that is like, okay, so fine, and it still hurts your cause, right? So like, fine,
Well, it's all
Neymar,
about
what?
strengthening the
Go ahead.
league, though. I think at the end of the day, though, the MLS is going to look at is how do we strengthen this, not necessarily at the club level, but as a league, and that's ultimately
Yeah,
what
as
they're
a
trying to
brand.
do as a
Yeah,
brand. That's what
Yeah,
they're trying to do, and that's the reason why they're bringing in these high level, like global profile, players. Is because they want to
yeah,
grow the brand. That's ultimately what they're going to, the commissioner, so to speak, is going to ultimately say. This is what it comes down to. So that's like I think that the caps are going to be a bit more restrictive, and it's going to go sort of against what the direction they're wanting to go. So that's the only reason why I felt like a luxury tax might be a better option, just because it would help those smaller market teams, strengthen their rosters and whatnot. I know it's not ideal because obviously we see what's happening
mm,
in MLB, but I think it would be better for the league overall if they're wanting to go in this direction, which I think is
yeah,
smart for the MLS to continue in this direction. If we want to make it, if we're wanting to attract new fans, if we're wanting to get more Americans, talking about soccer, bringing in these bigger names obviously gets people
yeah,
excited. We saw what happened in Miami, and soccer
yeah.
in general for sure. So anyway,
And I was talking about gradually, like, so you would raise the salary cap in stages based on revenue, right? With the
hmm
idea eventually of getting rid of it altogether. Now, like
yeah,
you said, there's going to be some owners that won't like that, but at some point you have to put up or shut up.
right.
It really depends whether you want the league to ever become one of the top leagues in the world or if you're cool with
That's
just
true.
sitting back and collecting paychecks. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
it may take pissing some owners off and forcing them to sell essentially, and MLS can do that, because
yep,
they're technically owner operators or whatever they like to call them, right?
yeah, they are.
Um, but yeah, my vision for MLS would be once it's popular enough, you either get rid of the salary cap or you have it because, like I said, you would want to compete with the Lionel Messi, you would want to compete for the Lionel Messi's of the world. So you would have to get rid of it eventually if you want to be like one of the top leagues, you know?
And I'm seeing that they are so like the Beckham rule, so to speak, where they can sign up to 3 big name players without really having their calories count against a cap.
Maybe, calories count.
Yeah, the salary cap. So, you know, maybe it's time to tweak that a bit as well. You know, I don't know.
Yeah. I'd like to see them. They need to raise the talent level of the league, but they do need to do it gradually. You know, they had to make sure the support's there before they start going wild, you know? So, but
again, it just goes back to my fear, though, that it's going to become, you know, it's just like, it's going to be like politics in the sense that it's a two-party system, right? All of a sudden it becomes a two, you know, like you take a look at it.
You don't want it to be like the EPL, right? You don't want it to be like 4 huge teams and then everybody else. I get
well,
that.
that's the problem. But that's the fucking problem, though. That's what I'm getting at. So, like, dude, my favorite team is Real Madrid, and Real Madrid spends more money on anybody else than any. Like, I'm telling you, that team is so fucking rich, it's ridiculous. However, the reason why there's a long reason why I like Real Madrid, but you know, again, I grew up watching them because that was my team that I played in FIFA, right? But anyways, when you take a look at it, La Liga, Premier, they have like 3 or 4 teams that are really good, and everybody else is like a middle team, and then you have 4 teams that are constantly going from the top down to relegation, back up to relegation, back up to relegation. You know what I mean? That's what they do. Like Real in La Liga, you have Real Madrid, you have Atletico Madrid, and that is somewhat of a more recent avenue for them. You have Barcelona, although Barcelona is decent this year, but the past few years they've been having issues with money and stuff like that. And then that's it. You know, like that's kind of it. Real Betis at one point in time was a good team too, but there's fucking 16 or 14 teams in La Liga, if I remember correctly. It actually might be 12. But regardless, like nobody else knows anything. Like Leicester City, for example, when Leicester City won the Premier League, it was the greatest upset that has ever happened in sports history when it came to winning a title. They were not supposed to be there at all. They won it all. And just to put it this way, there was a guy that was a businessman from like he grew up in like Leicester City, but like I think was actually from, I think he placed a bet in London, but I think he like grew up in like not the Amsterdam, the Manchester area, right? And so he he literally put a bet on that they were going to win the Premier League. He went off to work, and it was for like 8 months or whatever in China. He came back, and this was right before the Premier season was over, and they were trying to like contact him, like, oh, you want us to buy it out, you know, blah, blah, blah. He let it rode. He won more money than the Leicester City's entire fucking payroll because that's how big of an like odds they were. You know what I mean? Like it, but the whole point of that though is that that's literally what you're going to be trying. You want to compete with them, well, you can't. Like it flat out, they spend the transfer window. I think last year's transfer window in European soccer, there was $418 million, if I remember correctly, euros, by the way, 418 million euros spent on one day for a transfer window.
Wow.
Yeah.
Like you cannot compete with that. And that's what's going to be the problem with it I think the one thing that MLS has going for it is the fact that it is more fair competition comparatively because of the salary cap. If you try to change it and inflect into the European, the soccer, then it's going to be, we're going to have 2 teams constantly winning, and then City, we might as well not even talk about his podcast because they're never going to fucking win it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they'll never be relevant. Yeah, that's a good point. You know,
so that is my concern.
But at that point, so either you have to have parity or you have to just never be able to compete with like the top 5 leagues in the world, basically.
And,
you know,
right. And so that's where I like, you know, I want MLS to be able to succeed, right? But I want them to be able to succeed the right way. And I will concede that it's not fucking that simple. You know what I mean? You have to be able to allow, you know, Messi and Neymar to be able to come over here. Because if not, then like you're never going to be able to have it. Essentially, you need to be able. The only way this works, like the way I'm talking about, is you have the salary cap. Then you have young players that come in here and they develop in MLS. They become superstars in MLS, and then they stay in the MLS. That will never happen because there's too much money in European soccer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like a guy going and, you know, becoming huge in AAA and being like, hey, don't worry about it, guys. I'm just gonna stay down here in AAA because that's where I want to play. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, never is gonna happen.
yeah. So, anywho, that's my concern with it. And again, it's not that easy. I understand it, but there's a lot that kind of goes around it. So
For sure, it's not. Yeah, there's pros and cons to it all for sure, but those are all
Yeah,
valid points, though.
maybe there's like a creative way to get the best of both worlds.
yeah,
I
and
mean,
that's what we're gonna have to figure out. But go on, OJ.
well, theoretically, you would need everybody to be super rich, or
Mhm.
so you'd either need like a bunch of owners that are super rich and happy to put their own money into it. So that's going to be hard to find unless you're willing to deal with like Saudi oil princes and shit. So,
Right.
which no thanks. I mean, that's basically what they've done over in Europe
Yeah.
anyway. They've completely
Yeah.
sold their
Yep.
souls to the oil barons. But yeah, I can't really think of a good way to have both worlds. Like either you're going to have to wait till the top players of the world are older and the rest of the big leagues in Europe don't want them anymore, or you're going to have to essentially allow LA and New York to dominate the league every year,
Yeah, and that's
So
literally what we're having issues with baseball. You know what I
Yep.
mean? Is
And
that
let's face it, that's not going to change anytime soon. So,
God.
so?
yeah.
Yep. So, anyways, guys, let's go ahead and head to our sign off here. Adam, would you like to tell the listeners
Yes.
how they can interact with the show?
Yeah. So, listeners, listen up. We want to hear from you. Check us out, facebook.com/the hometown losers, LOUSERS. Give us a like, give us a share, give us your feedback. We'd love to hear from you as always. We also would love to hear from you when it comes to your questions and comments. So we'll be posting this episode up as we do every time. So be sure and comment and like and share if, if you would please, and thank you. Also, if you're not on Facebook and you're over on X, check us out at x.com/hometown losers. We would also like to hear from you over there as well.
When's the blue sky coming up, Adam?
Well, I guess we could also go in that direction if we wanted to be. So everybody's ditching X and going blue sky apparently because of Elon or whatever. So it
sounds like a lot of effort though. So I would.
I don't know. Whatever. It is what it is. Honestly,
What
there's
is
more
blue
traffic.
sky?
It's
what?
basically
it's the
an
liberal alternative to Twitter.
To Twitter because Elon Musk obviously owns Twitter and
I guess the conservatives are getting crazy on it now that Trump
it's turning
won or
into
something.
more
so
like a there's a lot of trolling going. There's a lot of trolling going on over there. For sure.
People
Some people can't stand
to
it.
hear thoughts other than their own, so they have to find their own echo
that's a
chamber.
whole that's a whole other topic.
Because they used to have and not to get into that much of that, but obviously things were, I'll call them, policed a little bit more over there, and now it's obviously
Wild West.
But
a little more of a Wild West now. So anyway,
all I'll say to that is it was good enough until Trump won, and then all of a sudden now we need blue sky.
There we go.
Because seriously, people bitched about Elon taking it over and all that other stuff, but they didn't stop using it. They didn't stop using it till all the conservatives got on Twitter and started talking shit because of the election. And they're like, "Oh, I'm sick of this. I'm starting my own thing over here." That's literally what it was. Oh man, what a disaster!
Got to ruin everything.
So now I'm actually really curious to see whether blue sky is going to actually take over market share from Twitter, or if Twitter's just too entrenched, because it's like the one place people go for their news and shit now. Just follow all your reporters, and learn about the world through tweets. Yeah.
Super fun. Well, anyways, OJ, would you like to tell the listeners what the game of the week is?
Yeah. Sorry for that little ramble there.
Oh, you're fine, man. You're fine.
So,
he asked, so there you go.
I thought it was a funny situation, kind of, honestly, but so the game of the week is gonna be Saturday in Columbia, Arkansas. Football is coming. And it's a potential snow game, so you can never really miss a snow football game, right? So that's why you're tuning into that one this weekend.
That's gonna be
Yeah,
awesome.
definitely say goodbye to Brady Cook too. Is his
More
last.
importantly, saying goodbye to Brady Cook, Luther Burden, Theo Weiss. There's a bunch of guys that are going to the NFL. So,
no doubt.
it'll be a new era for the Tigers next year. So this is definitely the end of a good run.
No doubt.
These guys made football fun for Mizzou fans again, which they haven't had much fun for a while. So definitely want to make sure you don't miss them because, I mean, who knows if Burden will be playing in the last bowl game, because he's going pro. Doesn't want to hurt his draft stock. I'm sure Cook will play because I don't think he's getting drafted personally, but I bet you he plays. But yeah, so this is the last time where you can for sure see all those guys.
All right. Well, sounds like fun. I'm looking forward to it. So, and speaking of all things fun, let's go to our last segment here before we sign out, and that is this week's
Stat Blast.
Over to you, Josh.
I appreciate it, guys. So we got two little quick ones here for you that I thought were just more interesting rather than like crazy stats, although one of them is a little nuts. All right, so I'll start with the first one, which happens in the MLB. So everybody knows Frank Robinson. So not Frank Robinson Jr., but Frank Robinson himself. This is actually affected. I did not know about Frank Robinson. He's the only guy that has ever won MVP in both leagues. He was the MVP in 61 with Cincinnati. So that was the NL MVP. And then he was the AL MVP in 66 with Baltimore when he won the Triple Crown there.
Oh, wow.
So thought that was interesting that in our long history, we've only had one guy that's ever won the MVP in both leagues.
No kidding. That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, especially because I thought that Shohei had won one in and for the LA
he did.
Angels.
I'm pretty sure, didn't he? I thought that he did.
I don't think he did.
Really? I thought he did.
I think he won. Did he win a Cy Young? Maybe that's. I don't think he won the MVP though.
I thought he won MVP because he won. He won obviously this year, but I thought he won MVP last year too. Didn't he?
Let me take a look at that real quick. I don't know.
I thought he did.
Oh shit. Yeah, he did. In 2000. So he is the second person. So maybe that's the reason why it just hasn't updated. So Shohei Ohtani becomes the second player to ever
Yeah,
win.
because he just got named or whatever the other day. Yeah. So there you go. Some history in itself as well. So there you go.
Yeah.
So the only other player ever was Frank Robinson, apparently. And now the second player just the other day is Ohtani.
That is neat.
That's crazy.
Craziness
indeed.
Wait, hold on now. Give me 1 second to confirm that. No.
I got places to be.
It's right before Thanksgiving, damn it. Give me 1 second here. So because now I'm getting conflicting reports on that. But I can tell you.
I'm reading it here that
are you
Robinson
looking this up
Ohtani...
on X?
No, I'm looking it up. I actually have the reference here. I mean, obviously Wikipedia.
No. We're right. Yeah, because he won in 21, 23,
22, and 24.
And then and obviously 24. Yeah. Okay. So never mind.
22, 21, 23, 24. And well, actually 21, 22, 23, and 24.
Wow. Okay, this is kind of nuts
4
too.
years in a row. Ohtani has, apparently.
He has not won it 4 years in a row.
Oh, he hasn't? Okay.
No, 22 was Aaron Judge and Paul Goldschmidt.
Oh, well, never mind then.
Okay.
I stand corrected.
See, that shows you how much I don't really pay much attention to awards voted on by baseball writers. A lot of them don't know what they're talking about.
Well, this is an interesting one. So just another little bonus. This is going to be a bonus stat blast for everybody. So the New York Yankees have 24 MVP wins in their illustrious career. The St. Louis Cardinals are second on the list with 21.
Really? And I'm sure the Dodgers are way up there too.
They are 15.
So what is that? Is that third then?
Third behind. Third behind us. Yeah.
Okay.
The Cardinals.
There you go. So so our last one probably was Goldschmidt then in 22.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and then before that was 09, and I'm pretty certain we all know who got an 09.
Well,
and then
we
also
know
an
who
08.
that was.
Pujols got screwed out of MVPs multiple times.
Yes, he did.
Oh, Pujols. Yeah, Pujols.
Yeah,
That's right.
he won it in
09.
2008.
Yeah,
He also won it in 2005,
right.
but definitely should have won it over Ryan Howard in 06. I remember that one
Yup.
specifically. Jimmy Rollins had a phenomenal season in 07, so I can understand that one, but still, you know what I mean? Like Barry Bonds won 4 fucking MVPs in a row for a guy
Of
that
course
all
he
he did was hit
Yeah.
homers and walked. Like, get the fuck
Yeah.
out of here.
Well,
Yeah,
let's
you're
see.
right.
Yeah, because he got 5, 8, 9. is when he got
Interesting too.
MVPs.
Interesting too. Speaking of some people that were home run hitters or whatever, most people would have thought in '98 McGuire would have got the MVP, but it actually went to Sosa.
Well,
'Cause it was-
that just
but
goes to
McGuire-
show you why you shouldn't pay attention to the award.
But everybody remembers '98 was. I mean, obviously Sosa
Yeah.
and McGuire. There was
We
the
know
summer
who
Sosa
won
McGuire,
that
but we
race.
know McGuire is the king of '98. So just
Well, yeah, but offensively, like hitting home runs, but Sosa was a much better defensive player. So, like,
Sammy who?
I mean, Mark McGuire
He's
played
white
first
now anyway.
base.
Sammy who?
Fine.
all right, let's get to my second one here so we can get out of here. So the second
All
one
right.
I have for the stat blast is just an interesting one. So Tommy Ross scored a hat trick in 90 seconds. This is a record.
What?
Why does that sound pretty cool, right? That is not NHL. That is in fucking soccer.
Oh, wait.
Which,
Huh?
yes. Yeah. Tommy Ross in 1964, when he was 18 years
That's
of
even
age,
more
scored he scored a hat trick in 90 seconds. And yes, they still had a
Wow.
running clock back then.
How in the hell did he score 3 goals in 90 seconds? That's
Yeah, that
On a
actually
running
doesn't make
clock.
sense.
Yeah.
What
That
the-
actually, I'd call that into question. What's your source?
like did it just bounce?
Did
Like
the
did it? Like
did
did
the
it
other team
go
not
in,
have a
bounce off
goalie?
the goalie, and then like or bounce off the goal and then come back, and he just like kept dribbling it in? Like how?
Yeah,
All I
so-
can think of is they weren't playing with a goalie, so he's just kicking it
Oh
from
my
like center
God.
field or
So
something.
this happened.
crazy.
He was playing at the time, it was like the 3rd league in England, so it was not the Premier League. But it's still
Huh.
professional soccer. But he was
Yeah.
like an up and coming kid. He had been playing with him since the ripe age of 15. And he was coming up or whatever, and was like, all right, no, like he's pretty good, obviously in the 3rd league. They started with the ball. He scored a goal pretty quickly from there with a quick strike, just running it up. Then they reset because I think from my understanding from this and what I got on the history of the game, and there's not a lot on like online to talk about that game, but the team was up against relegation by goals. So they were trying to like get the ball set really quickly, and it just turned over to be a turnover. And they just, again, that happened twice essentially.
Gotcha. Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So when I read that, I was just like, oh, I'm like, that's kind of cool. But 90 seconds, quickest hat trick in NHL.
You
And I'm
know
like,
what?
no, that's not true. I'm like, there's
That
been
would
a
never
quicker hat
happen.
trick.
That would never
there's
happen
no
today. With all the time wasting, the other team would be
Yeah.
like rolling around on the ground like he got shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, not to mention
No
the
doubt.
celebrations too. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
touche.
run up and celebrate for
Yeah.
like fucking 3 minutes
Oh,
before
we're gonna
like
take this guy off the field. We're gonna give him half an hour to just roll. Like he's gonna crawl to the sideline.
yeah.
He's
You're
gonna
right.
stop,
I mean-
have a picnic. Like fucking.
I mean, I know that they're supposedly have tried to speed things up, but you're right. It still takes forever.
Too
Yeah.
long.
Too long. By the way, one additional little stat blast that I'd like to add, Josh, as well. The number 152. The reason why I mentioned 152, it's a big shout out to Bennington, aka Winnington. Congratulations go to him tonight as the new winningest goalie in Blues history with number 152.
Which is kind of nuts because it feels like he hasn't been there as long, like, but he also has been there for 5 years. Like,
Mhm.
so, yeah.
So yeah,
But,
that's pretty cool. I just wanted to mention that since we had some history being made.
yeah,
as we've been
absolutely.
broadcasting. So there you go.
There we go.
Mhm.
That's all she wrote.
Good point.
All right, gents. Well, as always, I appreciate talking to you. For the listeners, please reach out to our socials, ask us questions, interact with the show. If you want to see any specific content, please let us know. Because we would definitely be willing to, make sure that we can take a look at that content. But until next time, we will catch you always here, same bat channel, same bat time. We'll catch you next week on the Hometown Losers podcast. Have a great night, everybody.
Hey guys, this is Adam. Just want to say thanks for listening to the Hometown Losers podcast. We'll see you next week as we continue our discussion of St. Louis sports.